This is the place where it all happened. The stories that continue to change our country.
And at present, we have got one student who is now at a BBC World Service working.
These are the faces we see.
Business studies.
Is Madam Susi Masaba.
Walter
Busolo, Shem Bilembo.
The voices we hear.
Glad you're tuned in. You're still tuned in to Maisha TV now every day here on Maisha Prime News. We air feature from different schools across the country
that have revolutionized societies through education. This is who we are. One channel, one bulletin. Masomo News Live. Join us every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. for Masomo News Live, exclusive to Maisha TV.
Politics, leadership, and governance is back. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Kering, Chebet. Of course, I'm not alone in studio. I'm joined by two Politburos. We have Bushebi Jr.
Thank you so much, Chebet. You got me off guard there.
Yes, and also you have Honorable JAFFARE MAKOKHA.
Asante sana, Chebet.
Yes, before we went for a break, we're talking about the cabinet of President William Ruto, which is now complete. We understand the CSs, the Attorney General, the Secretary to the Cabinet, and also the Prime CS, who is Musalia Mudavadi, took the oath of office, and now the government is complete. We expect now the government to perform. So this broadcast is live: Facebook, YouTube, Maisha Television Kenya, Instagram and Twitter at Maisha TV KE. You can join the conversation by texting, calling, or you can WhatsApp our phone number, which is 0746 999 841. Another promise that President William Ruto made when campaigning before he was elected the president is the issue of unemployment, and he promised to create a job for the youth, especially, who are the majority of the unemployed Kenyans. But during the commissioning of the housing program in Nairobi, that is in Kibra and also in Langata, the president scrapped off the Kazi Mtaani initiative, which was put in place by former President Uhuru Kenyatta. What are your opinions on that, Bushebi Junior?
One, I would look at it positively, because he's a president and he wants to also create a legacy for himself. And so some of these things is not actually scrapping off, it's rebranding. So you might be shocked it will just come back with a new name and a new brand.
Yes.
Don't be shocked when you see it. Number two, he made a declaration under a political mood where he was just throwing out words and saying, you know, mambo ya takataka Sakaja atashughulika, watu waende mjengo. And remember, look at the context. He was talking to Nairobi people. He was talking to the Kibra guys. And you know, the way you talk to those guys is totally different from when you're addressing the nation and telling the nation, you know, this thing is scrapped off. I'm yet to see an official, you know, statement over the same. Yes. Like the cabinet now is in place. We want to see now maybe the ministry involved in that. We want to see now the official scrapping off. But to me, I would take it as a political statement that he was making, you know, because he's building houses in Kibra, and he was telling the young people, now you're going to do kazi ya mjengo, muache kazi ya ya takataka. So I think sometimes media also takes it overboard, and the headlines immediately became like Ruto scraps off the kazi mtaani, Ruto scrap. But I if we listen carefully, he wasn't telling the whole nation that, hey, listen, from today we've scrapped off this thing. He was talking to those guys, and he was telling them, you know, it's here that I'm building this nyumba, and you guys are going to be employed to, you know, work here. So from today you will leave kazi mtaani. So let's put it also in context. Until I see an official statement, maybe from the minister or the ministry involved, and I see documentation of scrapping it off, and if it was gazetted when it started, I need to see a degazettement of the same. I need to see some official, some meat on the bones, and then I would say, now this thing is scrapped off. But if it is scrapped off, this thing of Mujengo has started in Nairobi. These Mujengos are not in Mumias, they are not in Siaya, they are not in West Pokot, they are not in Nandi, they are not in Uasin Gishu, they're just in Langata. Okay?
Yes.
So how will it help somebody from Kakamega? How will it help someone from Busia? How?
Yes. Just before I let Honorable Jaware comment on the same, this kazi mtaani program has been in place for quite some years now. What do you think is the efficiency of that program? Do you think it's serving its cause?
Yes and no. Of course, everything has a negative and the positives, but I think the positive side has worked because some young people have been able to be kept busy. Those who would have been idle during all that time and couldn't be making even a shilling to even buy bundles were able to. Those who were not able to, you know, afford food, they were able to. You can imagine ule mzazi nyumbani kuna mtoto ameenda hiyo kazi mtaani akarudi na kakitu. Unajua mzazi anasikia vizuri, anaona mtoto wake at least anakuwa engaged in a meaningful thing out there. So it keeps afadhali. Unakumbuka ulikuwa ukimaliza university unaenda kutrainiwa NYS. Yeah? So it's some form of NYS in a nutshell. Yes, it's another different form of NYS where you go and work, you clean streets, so I think it was a good idea, especially for guys when you toka shule ama schoolers maybe wamefunga ama university guys, you know, it keeps the young people and it's a good way to expend their energy. Hii watu wako na energy mingi sana. So if you as a government, if you don't tame the energy, they might use it to do some other funny things. Yeah. But on the negative, there are cases of corruption and, you know, bribery, and some guys have not been getting their money and stuff like that. So to me, in a nutshell, I'll give it 60% success.
Yes, Honorable Jaware, on the first question that I asked Bushebi Jr., if the president has scrapped off kazi mtaani, what is your opinion on that?
If the president has scrapped off kazi mtaani, I think he's not doing quite well. Because this kazi mtaani was giving millions of people, youth across the country, jobs. For example, in my ward, more than 1,000 people are being employed by kazi mtaani. They were getting 5,050 after every 2 weeks. Yes. And that money could help these people even to buy basic commodities in their particular home because people are suffering. But if the president decides to scrap off this kazi mtaani, then what else is he substituting with the kazi mtaani? I'm told he's substituting with the housing project. This particular housing project is done in Nairobi, but not in other regions across the country. It has just started in Nairobi. For how long will the people, for example, in Bungoma County have to wait for this particular project to start in Bungoma County? For how long will it take? Yes. If the people are supposed to wait for a period of 1 year, so what will these people be doing for the period of 1 year while waiting for housing project to come? At the same time, kazi mtaani was helping both kind of gender, even male and female. They could be able to do the kufanya kazi pale, kutengeneza vitu zikuwe sawa. But the case of housing project, mujengo is not as a mujengo. Let me call it mujengo. Are women able to do mujengo? I don't think they'll be able to do construction, something like that. But let's say, assuming that maybe women can also do something like painting, maybe they are able to do that. But now the project is just started. The phases of the construction is about maybe about sand, mortar and bricks.
Okay,
So
yes,
it's not,
love.
so the part of painting is not yet. It's not yet come. So what will be the women doing while waiting for that kind of money? So
Those
I'm
are
not saying.
mandazi.
Lakini msione sana
Yeah.
pia wanawake wanaweza
Wanafanya
kazi
mjengo.
mjengo. Kuna wale ambao nimeona na haraka.
A few of them compared to the
What a
number
man can
now.
do, a woman can do better.
But in terms of number, it will reduce. We are
Yes.
looking at the principle of utilitarian principle, creating happiness across the country. If, for example, it was employing more than 50 women, and now maybe half of that can be able, it means it has reduced in terms of
Yes,
women,
yes,
maybe
true.
empowerment. They're not being empowered. And we've been talking about women empowerment for quite a long time. So what are we? We are missing a point.
Let me just quote what the president said during the commissioning of the housing program in it was in Kibra. Alisema hiyo ni mambo ya zamani, tuachane na mambo ya kuokota takataka. Hakuna kazi mtaani tena, kazi sasa ni kujenga nyumba. And one of the Kenya Kwanza senators, Samson Cherargei, has also said that kazi mtaani was bedeviled with a lot of corruption, the issue that Bushebi Jr. highlighted. The opposition side needs to allow the new administration to run its own program, low-cost housing in every county. Let's now talk about the housing program. Do you think that the housing program is going to solve the issue, especially in the urban areas? Because I understand that rural areas, the housing program is not going to be effective sana. But in the rural area, do you think that the housing program is going to enable people to manage kupata ile housing?
Depends with the partnership and the deal and the vision that whoever is spearheading that housing program has.
Yes.
I heard that houses are being built and you will pay 2,000 shillings as low as 2,000 shillings.
Yes.
And then after 20 years you own that house, which to me sounds funny, but it's a form of mortgage. It's like you're just paying mortgage for that house. I see banks doing that. And that is something banks can do if given an opportunity, if a bank can take up. But I know that whoever is doing all that maybe will partner with banks and other partners to be able to implement it. In terms of whether it can work in other places, I'm not really quite sure. It depends on the population and the demand for houses in that region. Like in Nairobi, for sure, there's a huge demand for houses. And so if you compare it, for example, with Kakamega, or you compare it with West Pokot, there you see that's a totally different demographic factor there that you're considering. So it's really not a question, a straightforward a question that I can give a straightforward answer. You really have to have, you need to have scientific data to be able to know in this region, can this program actually work? In Nairobi, it may and can work, okay?
Yes.
But in some other areas, you really need to consider a lot of factors to see the demand for the houses, to see if people can afford, how much, what is the GDP of that region? How much are they producing? For example, if you take Bungoma County, what is the average earning of a resident, let's say in Kandui constituency, ana earn pesa ngapi averagely? Then huyo mtu anaweza afford nyumba ya pesa ngapi? Maybe per month anaweza lipa rent ya kiasi gani and stuff, so that you begin to formulate basing on that data.
Yes.
And so whether it will work, yes, it can, depending on the scientific data that you have regarding the program.
Yes.
And yeah, so there's something that just caught my attention, and I don't know if you can allow me to just point it out.
Yes.
It might be a bit related but not related at the same time. It is something that Dennis Itumbi posted or tweeted about Mutai Nguni, who was denied at first that he wasn't working in State House.
Yes.
And he really denied it for years, that he doesn't have an office in State House and stuff like that. Then at the end, when former President Uhuru Kenyatta was leaving State House, he forgot and tweeted and said, I'm packing my things from State House, and guys were like, wait a minute. Dennis Itumbi said, you are working there, you said you don't want. He denied it. Why are you leaving an office that you've never been there? And so I think it was on Thursday when Dennis Itumbi was in State House and checking out some documents, and he found out that Mutahi Ngunyi was being paid 14 million shillings per week. His company was being paid 14 million per week to advise the president, the former president, Uhuru Kenyatta. His company, Consult Africa. He was actually offering consultancy services to the former president, Uhuru Kenyatta. And he was being paid 14 million per week.
Not even per month.
Not per month. So that is like 4,000 bags of fertilizer. So he was being paid 4,000 bags of fertilizer per week. Crazy. Yes. So when we talk about implementation of programs, some of these things also depend on the level of some of these companies that offer consultancy services.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
They're just there maybe to, how do you get paid 14 million shillings per week?
2 weeks.
I mean, 1 week, 7 days. Yes.
Offering services.
Just to sit down and tell you now, go like this, do this, tengenezeni handshake, afanyeni namna hii. So somehow pia tukirudi huko nyuma, Rigathi Gachagua could be very, very right about the handshake and rising cost of living. Yes. Because if somebody is being paid 14 million per week, surely, for just telling the president, no, let's call this thing Azimio la Umoja. And then, that's good. Write a check of 14 million, give this guy. Only that. So these programs will also depend on whether President William Ruto will actually not do such things where he has his own people forming companies and offering consultancy services and, doing all kinds of scientific data. We are doing this research, policy making, we are consulting, and they're being paid millions and millions and millions. And one person being paid 14 million per week, do you know what that money can do if it's put in circulation? Because you're being paid 14 million and you're taking it to an account and you keep it there and it stays there for 6 months or 1 year. What if you placed that money into circulation? Yes. Which means you'll get some 500 bob, another person will get some 1,000, mwingine atapata, lakini umechukua pesa kama 14 million every week na umeweka imelala. So some of these programs fail because of these systems. In the network state capture.
Yes, Honorable JAWARE, what do you think is the effectiveness of the affordable housing program?
I think the best way to go about housing project is to partner with, to do it through PPP, private-public partnership, because under private-public partnership there is a way. There are almost 5 methods of maybe doing a project by the government, partnering with the private. And if you partner with the private, there is a way in which the private does their work. And there is an effective way of ensuring there's no corruption, because you're dealing with the professionals and not just governance people from the government side. So if you collude, you make a collaboration between people from the government and other individuals working from the private sector, you bring an issue, you try to reduce in terms of issue of corruption, such as things like that Honorable Bushebi has mentioned about the issue of conduct of money. So if this project is supposed to be implemented, they're supposed to be done through PPP project, whereby there need to be a correct model, whereby commercial banks need to fund this project, not the way the president mentioned kwamba we are supposed to be funded by NHIF. The amount of people are remitting to the NHIF, maybe 2,000 bob, and you want a bed sitter, you'll be remitting something like 1,000 shillings. I think that's another way of maybe public servants trying to steal from the public. Because if you recently, we know that people have been remitting money to NHIF, but they have not been getting services in terms of outpatient. You go there and then you are told that you're supposed to be admitted first before they offer you services about healthcare, and yet you paid the money. So maybe another way through the NHIF, if people are supposed to contribute through NHIF this money for housing project, then there needs to be another kind of maybe institutional body apart from the NHIF to deal with maybe remittances. We are doing the remittances, but there needs to be another body, apart from the NHIF, maybe another institution which will be dealing with this accountability of this money being remitted by Kenyans, 2,000 bob, because that's quite huge. Initially, we'll be contributing something like 500, maybe an average income earner, 500 shillings. But if the president now wants to improve the money, to be improved from 500 bob to 2,000, this 2,000 amount of money, if there's no way and a better way of accounting for this money, a better institution for ensuring this money is being accounted for, then we are losing. This money will be channeled to corruption cases, not corruption cases rather, but people will be stealing. The public servants, the person in charge of housing, developing the state department will be using this money to fund other projects. Yes.
Now, away from that, we understand that currently over 20 counties are facing food insecurity. We have drought, and the president, the second lady, wamekuwa flag off some food, relief food to the affected counties. Juzi, the president said that as a country we will plant 5 billion trees in the next 5 years and another 10 billion trees in 10 years. That is going to contribute significantly to the fight against desertification and climate change. Bushebi Junior, let me start with you. How true is President Ruto's statement?
I think President Ruto, you should know, he's not just talking to Kenyans alone. He's also talking to other international bodies that give money for programs like climate change and stuff like that. So some of his statements are actually just to please the international community. And yes, it's true, we can plant trees, but the figures are exaggerated just to, maybe either to insist on the point of planting trees, or he just wants to please the international community. Remember the issue of CBC when he said he'll scrap off CBC. It was Didmus Barasa who said walimu wanakula kuku za wanafunzi, and teachers were not happy with that statement. But UNESCO had said CBC must be there. And that is why you see even the president dancing over the issue of CBC. And this is just procedure where they are putting up a commission to look into CBC. CBC will just remain CBC. There's absolutely nothing that is going to change.
Exactly.
And it's the same thing with climate change. It's the same thing with, I usually tell people, bado tuko kwa ukoloni tu. As a country, we are still under economic, economic colonization, okay? Where mnaambiwa cha kufanya and economic. We still owe the international community a lot of money. And so they dictate how we do things and where we go. And they don't do it openly by interfering with your politics, because they don't do politics, but they'll do it economically. Mtanyimwa loan, ama increase rates, interest rates, mulie waseme okay, sasa mtafanya vile tulikuwa tunawaambia tafanya. So some of these things is just doing them because also, number one, there's a proposal already about climate change. It is in Bungoma, where Bungoma governor Ken Lusaka even has a bill in parliament about climate change. And so it tells you the whole issue about planting trees is about climate change and global warming. And the international community is funding a lot in terms of environment and seeing that the global warming is countered. And so this is one of the ways of protecting the environment is to plant trees. And so this is just a tiny example of what should be done. We should look at climate change and the effects of climate change. One of them is drought. Another one is famine. And those are the things that the president is trying to tackle. One of the biggest problems that he's facing right now. 24 counties, almost half of the country. Half of the country. And so whatever he's saying is true. I support him. We should plant trees. But again, we need to see action behind it. I think the number is exaggerated, but we need to see action. And we need this funding. And so because of the funding, some things are going to be said and done that,
Honorable JAWARE, how true is President Ruto's statement? You're going to plant 5 billion trees in 5 years.
The statement might be true or maybe might be false, depending on the person who is saying such statement. Because we understood that from time immemorial, we've been listening to the president saying statements, and yet the thing cannot be implemented. So we are looking at him and wishing maybe they could just happen. But from the way he has been saying that, we know it won't be happening. But at the moment, I don't have a problem with him issuing those statements. The problem is issue on policy, the policy objective about the climate change action. There's a National Climate Change Action Fund, together with the other program, which started in 2017 to 2022. That is a plan for medium-term plan for a period of 5 years. At the moment, they're supposed also, they are writing another public policy regarding on the agenda. The agenda is now issue climate change, the hunger and drought and the floods, because they're also impacted by the same thing, climate change. And if they issue public policy, if he issues such statement on the media, but there's no agenda setting on the public policy, then it's a problem. Because if we look at, maybe we've been planting trees since the time of the late Martha Wangari. So we've been planting such trees, but the question that we should be asking, maybe getting data from the Ministry of Forestry and Environment, how many trees so far have we planted since the time of 2007? If those trees they planted, how many are they at the moment? How many have grown into maturity? For example, from the data on the United Nations Environmental Program and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we plant roughly 400,000 trees yearly. So if those trees are the one being planted, so we want to look how many trees so far are there across the country. We look at the forest cover, the percentage of forest cover in terms of where we have improved and where we have not improved. So those are the question. It's not a matter of planting trees. You can be planting a tree today, but you do not take care for that particular tree against maybe human and animal activities. That tree will not grow into maturity, and therefore you will not have achieved your objective. The purpose maybe will just have expended money on the issue of planting that particular tree, but not looking at the way you're going to impact climate change action. At the same time, we have to maybe look at the mitigation and adaptation maybe measures. For example, the president talked about climate change is impacting issue of healthcare. So that's the first action you should look at in terms of adaptation. How do we adapt the issue of climate change into our healthcare? If we have a problem with the drought, there's a likely problem will be affected in terms of health, because we don't have good, maybe in terms of nutrition and in terms of dietary, the food we eat is not okay, then possibly we'll resume to GMO, and GMO will likely affect our health. At the same time, we have to look at the mitigation measure. We are planting 5 billion. Is the issue achievable? Do we have the money maybe to plant such kind of trees? I saw the president talking about that he wants people, maybe the common mwananchi, to start planting trees even during their birthday, the birthday of their children, to plant trees, 100 trees maybe in their compound. For example, find a person maybe is having maybe a plot. It's not possible to plant 100 trees. If you plant 100 trees, you'll be having a problem with your neighbors, because that is not your ancestral land. It's not possible to plant maybe 100 trees. So what is the government doing? What have they done at the moment? We want data actually. What have they planted so far? The number, and out of the number of the trees that were planted, 400,000. How many are those trees surviving at the moment into maturity? And how have they impacted the issue, maybe climate change so far? That's the thing that we want to look. We don't have any problem with what the issue statement they issued yesterday. The problem is how many trees so far we have in the country, the figures.
Yes, Bishop Junior wants to.
Yeah, I think Honorable JAWARE has really put it clearly. It's about the number and action behind. Plant 400,000 trees
yearly.
You'll find that maybe around 30,000 trees are the ones that mature down. We need to look at what the problem is. Where are the 330 or 370 3,000 trees? What happened? Did somebody grab the land and started doing something else and stuff like that? Number two, I just wanted to also say this. The president said that we should plant trees maybe during our birthday celebration. So far, the president has celebrated the swearing in. How many trees did he plant?
Zero.
Nothing. On Thursday, he celebrated, swearing in of his CSS. How many trees did he plant during the celebration? Nothing. He swore in the High Court judges, six of them. And that day, how many trees did he plant? Nothing. So you cannot tell Kenyans that they should go and plant trees during their birthdays and their celebrations. When you're celebrating 247 and enjoying and, you know, flying all over, and there's no tree that you need to lead by example. Look at the Rwandan president. When he started cleaning up Rwanda, he used to stop his convoy and actually get out of his car and lead the way. Kuokota takataka, kupanguza. Rwanda ukienda Kigali wa kupata unatupa takataka chini, we'll see fire. Because the president himself huwa anafagia barabara. Okay? Yes. But we have leaders here who only measure on giving press statements. But you don't see action behind. You don't even see it. They are treated like some form of gods who just show up in events, give statements, get back into their expensive cars and guzzlers, drive off, or get into their helicopters, you know, just flying all over and enjoying. We need to see action. Nakumbuka mzee Moi. Yeah? Mzee Moi alikuwa anabeba mawe. Jenga Kenya. Mawe inapita watu wamesimama karibu watu 300. Mawe inatoka wakichukua, wakije. Where are these leaders today? We have leaders who sit back and say, I am issuing an executive order. Okay? Yeah. From today, I want this and this and this to be done. And you expect people to actually do it? They will just get smart on stealing. Exactly. Exact problem that we have with the leaders and even this government. So on the issue of planting trees, let President William Ruto become realistic. Lead by example. How many trees have you planted yourself so far? Not for the media. Isikuwe sasa ati after tumeongea hivi utaitisha mkutano alafu uite media alafu upande mti mmoja hapo mwagilie maji watu wapige makofi and then no, we want to see real action off camera and on camera. That is what I wanted to add because I want to see some action behind the
Chebet, allow me.
Well, just 1 minute as we wind up. I like your closing remarks and also your closing remarks. Yes.
Thank you. Another issue on the issue of planting trees. There's no way you could be planting trees and yet we are still felling trees for charcoal and other timber making purposes. If first the president will have made such statement about planting trees, then we'll have come up with a policy regarding we have banned timber, felling of trees for timber and charcoal. That's the best way to go. There's no you can plant today a tree and then there's another person there cutting the same tree or another tree for issue of timber making and charcoal purposes. So it is nothing we are doing. We're just neutralizing the effect of one person.
So in short, you want the government to do away with charcoal burning and timber.
Exactly. We need to go to green energy.
Exactly.
Yes, green energy. Even right now, the biggest problem with what is causing global warming is fuel. The fossil fuel that is being burned. Actually, what happens with global warming is this, in a nutshell, in a layman's language. When this carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide is burned and it leaves the environment here, it goes up there and creates a layer over the zone,
ozone layer.
Okay, the ozone layer. So once it accumulates there, when the sun's rays penetrate into the earth through that ozone layer, it's supposed to penetrate, hit the ground and go back. Okay?
Yes.
So that is the balance.
There's a balance.
There should be the correct amount of sun rays coming to hit the ground on the earth and then leaving the earth, so that there should be a balance between cold and warm, cold and warm. But now you see when the layer is thick because of burning fossil fuel and lack of enough oxygen and stuff, trees that provide, you know, we breathe oxygen from trees and stuff like that.
Exactly.
When we don't have them, what happens is that a thick layer is forming over the ozone
layer.
And now when the sun's rays come, they penetrate the ozone, hit the ground, but they don't go up.
Yes.
So they cannot pass again through the ozone layer. And so you find that the earth becomes warm. Okay? When the earth becomes warmer, we start experiencing famine, drought, and all that kind of thing.
Yes.
And so planting of trees will sort it out. And let's see the president leading by example. It's a national disaster. We have almost half of the country facing drought. and farming. And here we are with donations. We need someone to come out seriously. And on top of that, on top of that, they're saying GMO will solve our problems.
It will not.
Can you imagine? Like they're telling us GMO is going to solve our problems. So, because I'm being asked to finish up, I will finish up by saying that the president should lead by example. Put action behind your words. Stop talking too much. Okay? Let your work do the talking. Stop celebrating. Kenyans want to see some action behind your words. And enough with executive orders. Enough with office boss. Unajua wale maboss ofisi. Wale wanakaaga tu nitie fulani. Nataka kitu fulani ifanyike. No, we need to see somebody on the ground and making sure things are happening.
Yes, thank you. I believe that was your closing remarks.
Yeah, there's something I wanted to say, but I forgot because
Okay.
I will give you a chance to say it. Just remember it. Yes, Honorable Jaware.
Okay, thank you, Chebet. My last statement, my closing remark is about the president to make public policies and draft regarding to make agenda setting. For example, is the president now is supposed to make agenda based on the public policy now, agenda setting based on the public policy. Now we've seen the cabinet secretaries have been appointed, and we anticipate to the best. Maybe initially we blamed him because there was no cabinet, but now we are so hopeful, believing that the president is going to undertake all the things that the Kenyans are looking after. Thank you so much, Chebet.
There's something I wanted to say about Cherargei the other time when he was quoted Cherargei, Nandi senator. Nandi senator has been issuing some statements that sometimes they don't make sense. I'm almost getting to that point of not taking him seriously on some of the issues. Number one, remember he said that the vetting was just procedure. It has nothing to do with, trying to find out if these people can actually hold office, just procedure. And he's been issuing all kinds of statements that I think he needs to tone down and allow the president to do his work. The president does not need them to protect him. President William Ruto is a strong leader who can protect himself. And so I don't think this throwing of statements left, right, and center by some of his allies is actually doing him
any good. Yes, Asante Bushebi Jr. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you, Honorable Jaware, and also thank you, Bushebi Jr. And much appreciation to our viewers for being with us. You're watching Politics, Leadership, and Governance PLG. My name is Rita Kering Chebet, and this is definitely Maisha Television Kenya. Don't forget to visit our social media platforms. You can visit our YouTube page and subscribe, Maisha Television Kenya. Visit our Facebook page, Maisha Television Kenya. Like and follow for any updates. Our Instagram, Twitter pages are at Maisha TV KE. My name is Rita Kering Chebet, and we've come to the end of our today's program. See you next time.